To everyone joining the webinar, thank you for coming. And we're going to start in a few moments. Welcome everyone, and we'll be starting the webinar in 1 or 2 minutes. Okay, so we're going to give 1 more minute to people to join. Hi everyone. So let's get this started. My name is Adi, and I'm the CEO of Sarid Research Institute. We're really excited to be hosting this webinar, and I'm sure we're going to have a very interesting time together. For those of you who are joining us live or watching this being recorded or in the recording, thank you so much for being here. And I want to present and share with you today's expert panel. Going from the left to right, we have with us Ido. Ido is a customer experience researcher at Maytronics, a global manufacturer of robotic pool cleaners. We have Daniela. Daniela is a senior director of pricing and analytics at Credicorp. Daniela is an experienced researcher in various industries, including aeronautics, hospitality, banking, insurance, and more. I already presented myself, Adi, CEO of Sarid Research. Lori is a senior researcher at SimilarWeb, a software company that tracks online behavior, and a co-founder of Insights.il, a consumer insights community on Facebook. Lori has also worked in various industries such as web development and cybersecurity. And last but not least, we have Shlomi. Shlomi is the founder and owner of RightQ Consulting. Shlomi is an advisor to various companies in life sciences that wish to grow in the US. And I'd like to begin by sharing the fact that we have almost 250 participants who are registered to this webinar. Some are with us right now live, and some will be watching this recorded. And some of you also completed a pre-webinar survey, around 50 respondents to the pre-webinar survey. So a short disclaimer, obviously the survey results are not representative, but they are interesting and will help us get into the mood of this webinar. And we asked about a few interesting things connected to the topic of product go, no go. We asked about product launch frequency at the organizations in which you work. We asked about research challenges you are facing, about the methodologies you are using, and also an open-ended question for the Q&A session we're going to have. And this is an opportunity to say that you also have the Q&A feature in Zoom. So anyone who has any questions to any of our esteemed speakers, you can just write it down in the Q&A and we'll try to get to that later on. So let's start with the product launch frequency. We first asked about the frequency of launching products and services, and almost all of you, 90% of the respondents reported that their organizations launch new products or services annually. So it would seem that the need for new product go, no go research is definitely a part of your life, or it should be. And going to the next question that we asked about research-related challenges, and specifically, what are the main research-related challenges when considering go, no-go new product launches? And a lot of you, half of you, in fact, noted the lack of supporting data to make decisions. Another 38% noted budgetary constraints, and 29% said keeping up to date with research methodologies. And I think that this is a good opportunity to ask our experts the first question. So the first question to the panel, I'd love for each of you to share a challenge or the type of research challenges that you regularly face regarding product go, no go, and tools you usually use to solve them. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now and make sure we're in gallery view so everyone can see everyone. And Ido, let's start with you. But unmute yourself so we can all hear.
Of course.
Now we can hear
All right.
you.
All right, thank you. So for me, one of the key challenges in product research is to translate the business requirements into actionable insights. To clearly distill the main things that we want to explore and what we're expecting to find. What we're aiming to achieve in this research. Therefore, usually I try to extract specific KPIs that will index the success of the research. And this, for me, it enables some sort of a roadmap further on during the process. And those KPIs, I think they can be extracted almost from everything. It could be from the stakeholders themselves. It could be the percentage of willingness to pay if that's what we're aiming to achieve. If there is benchmark KPIs, that's good as well. Another thing that for me serve as a KPI is a clear prioritization of the features that we're investigating during the process. If you can have like 1, 2, 3, that's the main pillars of the project, and this will enable us to go. So that's another challenge that we're experiencing. Last but not least, I think that for me, usually when we do researches, when we do studies, so yeah, I need to get a survey and to get some data. And every time people want exact numbers with coming from surveys. However, when the sample size is relatively small, for example, if we're doing a beta or a roadshow on a product, on a new product, then you won't have a large sample size that will be valid for a survey. So therefore, I'm trying to aim as much as possible for user interviews, although it will take much more time, at least on my end. But it will gain for everyone a deeper understanding on the main pain points and desires of the users.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So you said well-defined KPIs, that's the first thing. And the other one, finding original solutions for hard-to-reach populations, right? Thank you,
Yeah.
Ido. Daniela, so what are the challenges that you're facing? How are you handling those?
Well, as you said, I'm the head of pricing and analytics for Banco de Crédito del Perú. That's within Credicorp, which is one of the main financial groups in Peru. And one of my responsibilities involves creating new products for existing customers as part of the value creation agenda. And as the survey says, also data is a big challenge for us, since we need it to be very granular, reliable, and flowing regularly, especially now that we're increasingly getting into artificial intelligence. Another main challenge lies in the measurement of the added value of several parts of the product. So determining a fair price for that is difficult, and that's why we have increased the usage of methodologies as customer value enhancement, using conjoint analysis to evaluate the customer's perceived value of each product element. I will talk about that later on. And in Credicorp, we also operate the Innovation Center, where we focus on developing new products to attract new customers. And well, in that process, we use other methodologies regarding discovery, like in-depth interviews, shadowing, journaling, and other techniques. And in the experimentation part, we use lean startup scientific methods. And obviously, the choice of those methods depend on the opportunities we seek to capitalize on. But also, I agree that one of the main issues there is like how to define the correct method to do that, and be able to be like very client focused, so we can get the most feedback out of it and iterate very proactively in the process, so we can give the best product to the customers.
Okay, great. Thank you, Daniela. Lori.
Hi. So I really try to think about challenges that are unique to the product go, no-go situation, that are not just general research challenges. And one of the challenges I thought about was mainly when you have, you're trying to develop a new product or a new service that doesn't exist. And the way to define it, and to define it very accurately with the product manager, with the strategy people that you're working with, to make sure that eventually, as Ido said, and Daniela, we want accurate data. And if we will not define exactly what it is and what it is not, and where it starts and where it ends, and what we can offer at a certain point and what we can offer in the future maybe, but not at the beginning, we will not have accurate data. And sometimes it's not easy to define that and to explain that even to participants and research. Sometimes product managers have very clear vision, sometimes not so much, and you need to make sure that you're getting as accurate and detailed as you can. Sometimes we speak about products in very marketing oriented kind of approach, and we need to be as product or as service oriented in such situations.
Thank you, Lori. Shlomi.
Great. I tried to be brief because really there were some great answers and you kind of snatched some of my ideas. And I appreciate you for doing that. So I would say the two biggest enemies for making those decisions, to me at least, are wishful thinking and confirmational bias. And that's assuming that you are using the adequate data, which I know is important. Like you have to have that, but that's not enough. So the way to tackle this, first of all, it's hard. You know, people start a company, they have an idea, they have a dream, and now you come and you poke holes in their, big scheme. So you have to know how to communicate this. But I think it's a maturity question for every entrepreneur to understand that it's just the beginning of a journey, right? You have to pivot all the time. This is the life of a startup. So you have to be open about these type of things. So conceptually, what I'm trying to preach for is first democratize those things internally. You don't have to listen to everybody to make a decision that one person said, but you at least have to have all the inputs at your disposal. That's one. The other one is consult externally. You have to have someone who's unbiased, listen to your pitch for your, not even the company, the particular product, even a big feature that you wish to launch, just to get some kind of completely unbiased opinion, basically. And lastly, I would say, always, when you talk about tools, I don't know about a specific tool because I need to have more information about what type of product, what type of market. But I would say I would use the combination of three elements. One, it's like everybody said, like good, efficient data, quantifiable data. The other one, and I think, I don't remember who said it at the beginning, but interviews, qualitative, basically, data. And hopefully we have some time to talk about it later. And lastly, like others have said, the use of AI, the rising, I would say, power of AI. A combination of the three will kind of help you get the best picture. But again, it boils down to whoever needs to make a decision, really release all prior assumption and focus on what they see in front of them.
Great. Well, thank you all. And let me reshare my screen for the next question here. So we were talking about the challenges, and they say that you can learn a lot from successes, but sometimes you can even learn a lot more from failures. So I'm going to ask you to share a success story and a failure story of a research projects that you worked on and that we can learn from. So let's go ahead, Shlomi, and let's start with you this time.
I have a lot of failures to choose from. Maybe I'd start on a positive note, on a recent success, which actually involved the collaboration we had with the Sarid Institute. So as part of my work, I help startups kind of grow in the US. And one such startup is called Spot It Early. By the way, I asked them if I can talk about them prior to this webinar, so it's fine. And basically, they're a company who are developing a breast cancer test, which is very innovative and it requires some education of the market. So we wanted to understand what the market would think about such a solution. And the way we went about it was kind of twofold. One was very, I would say, the quantifiable survey, and this was like a great experience because you can really ask particular questions and quantify them, and maybe I can talk about it, elaborate later, but this was one end of this solution. The other end was something much more, I would say, soft. So instead of talking to the end users like we did with the survey, we found an organization called Shorsheret, which operates in the US, and they hire multiple social workers. And each social worker gets exposure to hundreds of users, in this case, women undergoing breast cancer testing. So they gave us another angle, and we actually did not do this in parallel on purpose. We did it in tandem. We started off with those social workers. They gave us like new concepts and a sense of things that we didn't have exposure to prior. And then we used those insights to craft a better questionnaire for the quantifiable survey. And that helped a lot. I feel like we really kind of unraveled some of those concerns and unmet needs. We were able to double down when we did the survey. And I think just briefly and that happened in more than one occasion, relying too much on online research. Because if you do that, you have to understand that this does not necessarily represent your target audience. Even if you scrape, entire Twitter, now X, or Facebook, whatever it is, wherever your audience is speaking about products, that doesn't guarantee an adequate breakdown of your target audience, and sometimes it really creates a lot of biases. So that happened multiple times, unfortunately, in my career, and you learn and you grow from it. So thankfully.
Thank you, Shlomi. It was an interesting project that we worked on. Daniela, please do share.
Yeah, happy to share. Well, maybe I'll start with the success and then go to the failure. So in Banco de Crédito, one of the main businesses is credit card business. 2 years ago, it was not a profitable business, in fact, for some years until then. And we needed to identify sources of value for our clients to develop strategies that could increase profitability without sacrificing customer satisfaction. So that trade-off was really important for us to understand. And we conducted several surveys, and we did a conjoint analysis to assess the relative value of each aspect of the credit card product. For example, for the ones that are not so familiarized with this method, we presented clients with different options where we changed some attributes of the credit card. So, for example, that included the APR, the credit line, how much cashback would they receive, the membership fees, if that could be or not waived on some conditions, loyalty program benefits, and more. So it's usually credit card business is really complex. So we took all those types of attributes and we changed the products, changing just a little bit. So we could get from that like the relative value of each of the components. That was really helpful for us. And this customer value enhancement project provided us valuable insights. Like, for example, we got to discover that clients prioritize discounts and offers and over other things. They placed higher value on the perks they would receive on the credit cards and the status that was associated with the credit card, the color, like the texture, other things, rather than the price. The price was not something that was so important for our clients. And as a result, we were able to get like the courage to increase prices and also introduce new credit cards with improved looks, benefits. And finally, after all that process, we were able to more than double the profitability of the credit card portfolio, not only the origination, but all the portfolio of the business. That was lots of millions of dollars upside just because of those insights that we could implement from there. So that was great. And on the other side, obviously, we have learned a lot from our failures, as you, Sarid, were saying. That's really important. When starting a new project, we usually assess the size of the potential market, how desirable is that for the company, aligned to our strategic values or targets, and the level of support we can expect internally. We also identify customer pain points. How can we effectively solve them to add value? But the failure that we had was that about a year ago, we just approached a business not from that perspective. We just forgot about it because we were approached by a potential partner to develop a credit card together. It was similar to, I don't know if you're familiarized to the Rappi card, which is a product of a partnership between Rappi, that's the delivery app like Uber in Peru, and Interbank, which is a retail bank in Peru. So there, one potential partner that was the competition to Rappi approached to us to do this credit card, and the senior leadership of the company was really enthusiastic about this opportunity. It was like really hot at the time, all the conversation about the Rappi card. But after a careful analysis, we realized it wouldn't be profitable for us. And we were this close to making it a matter of faith, just because like all the senior management wanted to go there. We spent a lot of time and effort trying to convince the organization otherwise. Which is something I consider a failure, because obviously when you have a method, you know how to analyze these things. The company should really
adhere to the methods, right?
Yeah. Yes, they should hear that and not have so much process of conversations and analyzing. And well, finally, when some months from that, Rappi card was later discontinued, so it validated our decision, obviously. But well, at that time we spent a lot of time in that process.
It's an example of a failure turned success, I would say. And also, I would say to our listeners who heard a lot of terminology, like conjoint analysis in your answers, we will have a slide about methodologies. So stay tuned for that slide as well. Thank you, Daniela. And Lori,
Sure.
please do share some successes and failures.
Will do. So I'll start with a success, a project that is very dear to my heart. from a previous company I worked at. So a director of product management came to me and told me about this new opportunity that he thinks about, a new product basically. And he already got some negative feedback from C-levels in the company that do not want to take this approach for various reasons, brand, not our DNA, not our forte, and so forth. But he was very enthusiastic about it and told me, let's do some research and then we can decide. And so the first stage was to do research among our customer base to see if there is any interest, if it can be something that solves problems for them. And the second stage was to go outside of our customer base to conduct the market research, more full-on kind of project. At the end, we presented this and financial analysis of this opportunity to the C-levels that were very much against it at the beginning, and we were able to convince them. And today it's one of the products in the company's portfolio responsible for obtaining tens of millions in ARR. Really proud of that. And what I think that worked really well was the collaboration with the product management, that we were into that together as a team. And the other thing was also like the stages of the research, not taking full-on research at the beginning, but to learn also from the first stage among our customers, what they understood, what they didn't, and to take it to the next stage outside and to be able to show both cases was very strong. So that's a success. When thinking about a failure, there is a not so happy story about a new product that the company I work for wanted to launch. There was a lot of pressure to conduct the research from upper management to get the understanding, data, and we thought we had all the information that we needed to go out for the research, and that's what we did. And just right after we got the results and prepared the reports and everything, we understood that there was some technological gap that the technology leaders did not understand prior to the research. And basically it changed a lot of what we can do in the product. So it changed basically the value proposition of the product. And so a lot of what we did was not relevant at that point once it was discovered. So I think another thing is timing, to make sure that you're in the right timing of the product and you have all the information that you need to validate. Yeah,
well, that's a very interesting case. Slightly disappointing, I could imagine, but yeah. Thank you for sharing, Lori. And Ido, now you're up.
All right. So I'll start with the failure. And I see much of resemblance in Lori's case. There was a product that we aimed to launch, and we've done some research about it beforehand. And everything was very quick because we needed to present it as soon as possible. And when I presented it, I presented in front of the product team and the developers and engineers, and I was very proud of the product of the research because I thought it was aligned very good and it answered most of the research questions that we had at the beginning. But then when I heard the developers and the engineers, like, okay, this thing is not feasible. This feature can't be done. And okay, so how do we go on from here? So for me, the first thing to learn from this one is to align all the stakeholders together to understand what really can be done and what to expect on their side and from the product intentions and desires. And if we can consolidate both of the wills together, the product and developers together. So for me, as a lesson, is to align everyone together to see that we can really start the research properly, and with the outcomes, we can go we can go continue in the research and to get a green light afterwards.
Yeah, it's an important insight to get everyone on board. Otherwise, you get to the end point and people start fighting among themselves, right? At the discussion or in the meeting when you present the results.
Exactly.
Eventually, everyone points at the statistician, right? Your results are wrong. Okay. So let's move on to the next talking point, and that would be methodologies. So in the pre-webinar survey, we asked you, what are your primary methodologies? And this one was a multiple choice in which the respondents could have chosen more than one methodology, kind of a combination of methodologies. And you can see, I myself, by the way, a more quantitative guy in my background, in my day-to-day life. But you can see that the most common thing here, we actually split the different answer choices of the quantitative side, but we kind of consolidated the qualitative side. So that would be focus groups, in-depth interviews of consumers or users. And half of the respondents said that they're using qualitative methods. And as was mentioned previously in this webinar, I do believe in the combination of those, either in parallel or tandem, or it's very important to see the consumers firsthand. So that's half of you. And we also see that about 40% use survey-based methods like willingness to pay, and 38% said analyzing transactional-based data. So that would be analyzing an existing data set, that would be analyzing the behavior of existing consumers in the product, very common, I guess, in software development, where the transactions are actually available and are actually in a database. But also 29% said organizational intuition. So, and I studied math in first degree in my BA, and they say that probability is something that it's not easy to fathom, and worse than that, we usually make mistakes with probability. So gut feeling can be dangerous, but can also be beneficial. And this leads us to the next question. That would be, if you had to choose one research methodology, like you're on a deserted island and you have to do some kind of a go, no-go research product, you have to choose one research methodology, what is your default go-to for product go, no-go research, and why? So let's stop the screen sharing and start with you, Ido. What would you choose? You don't have to choose something from the list. You can choose any research methodology you want.
Of course. Actually, this one is quite interesting for me. I came from the academy, from cognitive psychology. Everything has to be very experimental and a lot of statistics, and qualitative research, interviews was a forbidden word for me. But then in my previous work as a UX research, most of my work was user interviews. And I realized that I was missing something over here, and I discovered a new world in those interviews. And for me, it is the combination between both of the qualitative and the quantitative methods, because the quantitative, the surveys, it will give you the what, it will give you the how, but the qualitative, it completes it, and it will give you the why. And for me, they both go together. In an interview, I think there are moments that are very distinct and very lucid for the user and for me as well. And this is the aha moment.
The aha moments,
Exactly.
right? Yeah.
I think that there's aha moment on the inside that they unravel by themselves, and there's the moments of the pure frustration of something that they weren't aware of at the beginning. So those two moments for me are the essence of qualitative research. And when they correspond to the data from the quantitative research, for me, that's the whole thing.
Right, great. Daniela, what would you use?
Well, I wouldn't be able to select like a default methodology because, as I told you, we look at a very broad type of projects, and obviously it depends on what project we have in hand. But I can tell you what's my favorite. So I really like conjoint analysis based on quantitative surveys. I'm a woman of numbers, so I really love the fact of having like very great insights in terms of that can be backed by quantitative information. I agree with Ido that it's important to then validate those with qualitative surveys, understanding better why that happens and to which extent can we push or not some insights. But well, I love the possibility of doing conjoint analysis based on those that information, because it can provide us with information that customers may not even realize yet. It's something that is like in the back of their head, and if you ask them directly, maybe they are not going to tell you that, but if you can use this type of methodologies, then you can get like that what's in their head. Preferences and evaluation of the attributes are key to monetization, which is my passion. I like to impact the top line, and those kind of insights really help me do that. I really see that this can be a game changer, case I told you, so I really like it.
Right, and just in case someone here is listening and wondering what is conjoint analysis, it's basically showing the respondent various combinations of features and possibilities for a future product. And eventually you can get a lot of information out of it, right? You can actually know what's the importance or the relative importance of each of the features, what's the sensitivity to the price. So it's a very strong tool you can use. Okay, great. Thank you, Daniela. And Lori.
Sure. So I think that similarly to Daniela, I like numbers. When I just kind of analyze a survey, I'm in my zone. I really enjoy it, and it is my favorite method. But especially when considering product go, no go, and everything that's on the line, I highly recommend, and I believe in a mixed methodology, if it's surveys and qualitative, if it's using existing data, the mix of everything you can do to make the picture clearer for the decision makers, you do that.
Great, great. So Shlomi, for you, I want to spice up this question a bit, because in our pre-webinar survey, we didn't have any methodology involving AI at all. I'm not sure why. It was a multiple choice. I didn't add it over there. And you said this and this can't be. We have to talk about it, right? So Shlomi, please do share, how do you use AI, specifically large language models like ChatGPT? How do you use them for research? How do you use them from your perspective?
That's a great question. I think we had kind of a chat prior to the webinar, and we started chatting about it. It's very timely, given Elon Musk's recent comments about how fast people are going to be replaced, 50% of the workforce or something like that. And to me, this is not the case. We will not be replaced by AI. We will be replaced by people who know how to use AI. It's not the first kind of transformative technology that we've been introduced to. Remember the internet from like, I don't know, a couple of decades ago. And it's going to change a lot of things, but definitely you can use it for your own benefit, especially when we're talking about conducting those type of researches. And the way I see it, and again, we're talking about we're May 2024. My answer will probably change in a few months from now, and a few years from now, as we're going to see more and more of these LLMs evolve. But I think in essence, especially when you talk about large language models, they have limitations and you have to be aware of them. If you use them wisely, though, they can really be a game changer. And if I can speak specifically about where would you want to inject the use of LLMs like ChatGPT-4 or any other one, I would start with enhancing kind of the data collection and processing. And this is something that you were able to do by partnering with companies who could do that. Now you have a shortcut in a way where you can use these tools. You can automate content analysis, so you can extract. You can, again, it needs to be good data. So garbage in, garbage out, that's a rule that applies to every tool that you're using, especially LLMs in my mind. But they can extract key themes and concepts and insights from data that you already have. They can identify trends, patterns in the data that you may have overlooked. So it's another kind of pair of eyes, if you will. I think it's also, I talked a little bit about how we can improve kind of survey design and things of that sort. So definitely something that you can use to designing more effective surveys. So generating like comprehensive questions, making sure you haven't missed on anything. When you think about how LLM work, right? They predict the next word, but they give you a certain average of the common knowledge that is out there. And that's a very powerful tool. You don't have to agree with that. You can choose to take it or leave it, but at least you're aware of it, which in my mind, it's a huge improvement. And lastly, when you think about the qualitative part and things that Ido mentioned earlier, a combination of the two. So kind of analyzing these open-ended responses, something it's really hard to do. So just, again, another interpreter of the qualitative data could be very useful. There are others, but this to me, that's kind of where I focus on when I'm thinking about implementing LLMs in my day-to-day approaching this research.
Yeah, a lot of benefits that they give us, but also always keep a critical eye on the responses you get from there.
Never go solo. If you are not aware of the subject, you're not familiar with the subject matter, I would definitely recommend not using LLMs. You have to know what it's talking about because it's a copilot. It's going to make mistakes. We call it copilot for a reason. Okay, right. It's not really you're still flying the plane.
Yeah, I never thought about it. It's actually a good choice of a term saying good copilot for that. Yeah. Okay, so we're nearing the end of our webinar, and we have some time for your questions, and we do have some questions popping up. So let's go ahead and answer some of the questions that we got. And let's start with you, Daniela. If you'd have to choose the 3 top things to consider when implementing a data-driven strategy in an organization, what would be those 3 things? And also the original questions, what was with a minimum budget and maximal efficiency? So keep that in mind as well.
Well, the first one, and it has been repeated over and over in this webinar, but I think it cannot be stressed enough, is if you put junk in, you'll get junk out. So really, that part of making sure that the data you get is the correct one and it's consistent is really important. We had a case in one of our subsidiaries of the group where there was a huge effort in getting the data to the data lake cloud. And after all of that, they found that all the information, a big part of it was not consistent, and that the people in the company were still using the other sources of information because the formal ones were not correct. So it's really important to understand like what's your data as is? Where are you starting over there, and where do you want to get, and what's the most efficient way to do that? I think that even if data lake is like the best option usually, if you don't have much budget, there are ways to do that in a sandbox or a data mart, not so formal, but just making sure that the information is okay, that it has some controls of quality, that is really important. Second, I would say that when building something, it's really important to start thinking about the end game. Where do you want to end? Like, what decisions do you want to be able to make? What kind of questions do you want to be able to answer? If you don't start from there, there's a huge probability that you lose a lot of time and effort in the process, because you just start going through a path and going back and forth. So really starting by, what do I want to achieve in this? What kind of process do I want to inform with this data? And going backwards from there, it's something that has worked for us really well.
Having a good understanding of the research questions, right, when you start.
Exactly. Where do you want to, what kind of insights do you want to get? So in that sense, from those insights you want to get, what kind of research should I do? What kind of interviews or methodology? So starting from the end. And the third one, I think having the right mindset is really important. Sometimes when you try to have everything perfect, like the perfect process, methodology, you can get to analysis paralysis. So I think it's better to approximately be right than exactly be wrong. Sometimes when you try to find the exact methodology and the way to do that, you get the exact wrong answer. Sometimes it's better to get an approximately right and just be pragmatic with the efforts that you can make.
I love the sentence of being approximately right and exactly wrong. So I'm gonna adopt that. Thank you, Daniela. Shlomi, the next one is for you. From your perspective, and you have a lot of perspective helping small companies grow, right? So what would be the minimum required proof for establishing a product market fit for a new company, or let's say a startup company? What would be?
That's a tough one. Again, it kind of context dependent, but at least from my experience, so I'm talking about the healthcare space. Even healthcare, you know, it's an umbrella term, but kind of I'm using proxies here. So to me, first of all, if as much information as you can garner and, you know, kind of cover all the aspects is always preferred, but sometimes, you know, this is real life and it's not the case. Maybe you don't have enough resources, you're running out of runway money, whatever it is. I would ask myself two questions that I need to provide a good answer. And the reason why I say that is, you know, it's everything is built on top of that. You're not just catering to your audience, right? You have investors to report to, you have the company to report to. So the two questions, I would like a clear answer. It's and we heard it in other maybe configurations or throughout this webinar. A, it's the will to use, and B, it's the will to pay. And again, I want all the other things as well, but I would start there as the minimum requirement, because everything else is stemming from that. You can talk about the pricing strategy, you can talk about the business model, you can talk about all these things, but at the end of the day, if someone thinks that your product is off-putting or otherwise they wouldn't pay a certain amount of money, so you don't know exactly what's the pricing sensitivity, then everything else you're building, it's kind of a house of cards, right? Because you don't know these two fundamental questions. And there are many ways, like we talked about all the methods to get to this knowledge. And also, I would say it's in flux. The fact that you measured it only once at the beginning of the process doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. We all work in competitive environment, competitive landscape. Sometimes disruption is coming from a company who can revolutionize your sector. And then what? So this is something that's always kind of ongoing. Don't ever think that you know exactly what your customers are thinking at any given moment. You have to always kind of challenge yourself if that's still the case. But definitely, when you think about product market fit decisions, start with these two.
Great. Thank you, Shlomi. Ido, what would you consider as key metrics or indicators when evaluating the success of user research efforts?
Okay. For me, when I'm thinking on the key metrics or indicators, I'm thinking it could be a couple of things. First of all, clear KPIs on the research goals. What I want to achieve and what will be a KPI for that if I achieved it or not. So therefore, every time I have research, I have clear research goals, and then at the end of the research, the last slide for me is to focus on those research goals and to see and to show whether they were completed or not, and to what degree they were completed. Another thing that I usually trying to do is to bring several actionable recommendations throughout the research itself. It doesn't have to be as the volume of the recommendations, but the importance of them. And this relates to another question, to another topic of the impact on the decision making. How the research affected the decision making at the end of the process, whether some of the features were implemented in the product or not, and if so, how many of them were prioritized as the first tier or the second tier. Those are the main metrics that I use. Of course, you can always use the classical metrics, effort score, or sometimes you can use NPS if you're on it. There are more solid frameworks. For example, Google uses the HEART framework, 5 dimensions that captures the user's experience throughout the process. So usually I try to implement some of those KPIs, if not all of them, during the research, and to answer most of them, if not all of them.
Yeah, very nice. So what you were saying originally was being able to affect the organization, right? Seeing the recommendations get accepted and get implemented.
Yeah.
Nice. Laurie, well, full-blown market research, as we all know, can take a very long. And you work in software development, which is a really very fast industry, right? Features get popped up every other week. So how do you keep up with the fast pace of software development in terms of research?
That's actually a really good question. I think that first thing is that even in SaaS companies, there is a roadmap. So you need to plan ahead. You need to be in touch with your stakeholders. For example, now I already have a meeting in August about a really big release that we want to measure something about. So be prepared. That's the first thing, and be aware of the roadmap and changes. The other thing is also be realistic because not every feature can be investigated and do full-blown discovery, maybe just in a non-realistic world. And there should be prioritized based on the importance and the effect we hope or believe that such features will have, or again, big products or launches should be prioritized. And also not everything should have a full-on discovery. Sometimes it's something that we can just validate to add 2 questions to another survey we're running. Sometimes we can use data like we discussed before, users' behaviors, user amount of search in a website of a specific feature that doesn't exist. It can be support tickets, it can be feature requests that were submitted. And also sometimes you need to be creative. Sometimes you just need to add a pop-up to your platform and just ask 2 questions as fast as you can to get some sort of direction. And yeah, but I think that being aware of the roadmap, being creative, and not expecting full-on research on every project is the way to go.
Yeah, and creativity and diversification of the research tools.
For sure.
That's part of it, yeah. Daniela, the next one is for you. What tactics do you use to estimate and avoid biases in research?
Well, so one thing we take into consideration for that is really understanding what type of data do we have, and if it's distributed in a way that can lead us to some biases. So understanding the several variables, it could be demographical or other related to characteristics of the different products. It can tell us if there's a part of the population that is misrepresented or overrepresented in our pilots and the experimentation that we do. So I would say that's like the most important action we usually take.
Great. So developing a good understanding of the source of the data, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. And Shlomi, I think that would be our last question for today. So you have the honor of being the last one who answers, and this one is on a topic you already talked about. How can we use AI tools to collect data, and what tools would you recommend? And unmute, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Great.
So I don't have one particular tool. I can share what I use. So I think I'm on exploration mode. So I do subscribe to multiple tools to do so. I think that I wouldn't go and use the free version stuff. And to me, what I find most useful out of all the existing tools right now are those that allow you to build kind of your own LLM or GPT. And I think the reason why is that one of the, I would say, price that you pay using those tools is that you're not sure which data set they're working on. So, you have the wisdom of the internet, but sometimes it's just too broad, right? If you're going to give me an average of the entire world, then maybe it's not relevant to my particular segment of the market. And by the way, I'm talking about something that anybody can do. So of course you can always and I recommend doing that as well. Hire experts who will do this for you and would pay the tokens, and they know what they're doing for sure. But even if you're in a small startup and kind of bootstrapping your way into the seed money or whatever it is, you can do a lot with those how do we call it, specialized GPTs. They allow you to do a couple of things. First of all, make sure that the GPT instructions are only relevant to your corner of the universe, whatever it is. We heard about everything today, right? Aeronautics, healthcare, fintech, whatever it is. You can make it dedicated to that particular area. And in that case, it will give you more relevant answers. And you can also upload company data, whatever data you choose to upload. And again, it keeps it much more relevant and concise. So that would be my recommendation.
Great. And you can always, you were also talking earlier about the theme extraction, right? You can always just paste a corpus of text and instruct the model to extract these specific themes. So that's basically data collection. You're extracting themes. It's another thing that you can do. Okay. So we're nearing the end of our webinar. And I really want to thank everyone who our panelists, of course, and everyone who joined us today, all the attendees for watching. And if you have any additional questions for me or any of our panel members, be sure to reach out. We'll be following up with a post-webinar survey and the recording of this session. So you can also share the recording, rewatch it, and please do answer the post-webinar survey and let us know what you thought. Have a great rest of the day, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.